So, hello and welcome along to another edition of Isolation Interviews for Hospital Radio and my YouTube channel. And, well, my guest today is one of the dragons from Dragon's Den. She is, of course, the fantastic Deborah Meaden. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
Now, I mean, obviously the last year, we must start off by talking about the last year. It's been strange. For you, how have you coped with the change in rules, that just sort of the new way of life, really?
I think the human spirit is amazing, and it's amazing how quickly, something that feels really strange at the beginning actually becomes quite normal to you. So I settled into, I've got a home in Somerset, and I've got lots of animals around. That's where my husband is, my animals and my husband. That's not in that order, obviously. So actually, for me, it was quite nice for a moment to be quite still and in the same place. But of course, that comes with all of the feeling of, yeah, well, aren't I lucky? I can be here amongst my animals with my husband, lots of space. So it sort of comes with this guilt of feeling like, yeah, but I'm not in a flat in the central London that's got no outside space. I also feel very lucky because I've got a lot of investments. So whilst I was staying in one space, I was talking to a lot of people who were facing very challenging situations, which was kind of, it was difficult, but it gave me access to other people's lives on a daily basis. So I think that definitely helped me. And also sorting out challenges, it's kind of, it's what I do best. So it kind of gave me, I had this stillness in my life, but I also had these moments of energy where I was really engaged with a lot of my businesses. So for me, it has not been as tough as it has been for an awful lot of people.
I mean, obviously, you it sounds like you have been very busy. Have you had much sort of time to just learn a new skill or to kind of just take it easy a bit? Or has it been full on for the whole year and a half?
No, I think, and I actually just think staying in one place for me is a moment of stillness, because usually I am traveling around a lot. And I would get up every morning. I'd go out barefoot. I always go, first thing I do every morning, go out, doesn't matter what the weather's like, walk around the garden barefooted just to connect with the earth. So my rhythm of life, although it sounds like I was very busy, I was lucky enough to have sort of hours in the morning where I just have my coffee and I'd be with the dogs and I'd be walking around the garden and Paul and I'd be having a chat. And that was lovely. So I was much more in control of my diary, as opposed to sometimes my diary literally just chases me from one place to the next to the next. I was able to say, well, actually, no, and I'm going to ride. I'm going to go riding first thing in the morning, Charlotte. So don't put anything in my diary until midday, and that for me was quite a luxury.
And I mean, the other great thing I would say is it has brought, I mean, obviously you've been able to talk to, people that you work with, but would you say it's brought you closer together with, sort of family, friends, people that you maybe wouldn't get the chance to speak to as often as you maybe wish you would?
Well, I can't say that, honestly, because we're all quite a distance from each other, except for my older sister, who is about 20 minutes away from me. And that was my exercise. So I would ride. So I did see Gail on a much more regular basis. But actually, of course, during lockdown, I've got a sister with MS who lives in London. I really couldn't see her because she was very vulnerable. My parents are in Exeter, so I really couldn't see them. So actually it stopped, I think some people it did bring together, but for me, it actually stopped being able to go out until, of course, it got a little bit looser and we all felt a little bit safer. And there was that rather nice moment at the beginning of the undoing of lockdown where you could actually go out and see people, even in small groups. And that was the moment I was able to spend more time with my family.
I mean, the other thing we must say as well is the NHS, just what an amazing job they've been doing. I mean, obviously, but way before this, but now in particular. I mean, what's your opinion been of just the amazing work that they've done throughout this whole thing?
I don't know. I don't know how they've done it. I don't know where they've found the human strength in such, it's all very well about us to talk about lockdown and we can't see our friends and families. They have been facing the consequences of this pandemic on a daily basis. and people who spend their entire lives curing people and helping people, having to live in a very different situation, being human to people, and having to face a situation where they're all masked up and they couldn't comfort people, and they frankly, in many cases, couldn't do anything about what they were seeing in front of them. I don't know. Superhuman. That's what they are, superhuman.
And I mean, you did have a bit of time yourself, obviously a bit of an injury, and obviously had to use the NHS, like many people have over the course of their lifetimes. And I mean, I imagine as ever they continued to do a great job.
I saw I was going to sneeze. Then I've actually got allergies now. Before anybody worries about me, I'm allergic to cats, and I've got cats. No, I broke my wrist. I went into A&E. And I have got to tell you, they were absolutely fantastic. I sat, people think that sometimes I get better service because of who I am. I didn't. I sat in the waiting room. They didn't treat me any differently. I observed the way they were looking after everybody else. I took my time, and they've done a fantastic job. It hurt a bit. They manipulated me without any anesthetic, and that hurt a bit. But I'll forgive them, because my wrist is now, it's been 5 weeks out of plaster, and it's looking good, and I'm fully working. So I cannot thank them enough.
And to say, amazing news to obviously see, kind of it getting back to normal, which is obviously fantastic. Now, let's talk a little bit about, obviously, the amazing career that you've had. I mean, obviously for you, business has obviously been a huge part of your life since an early age. And I mean, where did the kind of interest in being an entrepreneur, and where did that all come from?
I don't know, but I always wanted my own business. I mean, when I was 7 years old, I never thought for a minute that I was going to have a profession. I always wanted my own business. I think I have always been fiercely independent, even as a very annoying little independent child. But I think that might have come from, my mother, she divorced when we were absolutely tiny, and she had to work very hard to build a life for us. And I think I just had examples around me of people who just got out and did stuff. And I just couldn't wait to get out and do stuff. And I'm not very good at taking instruction either. So that's another reason to run your own business, not try and work for somebody else.
And I mean, didn't you, from an early age, you actually went and worked in Italy? Is that right?
I did. I actually, I had an ex-boyfriend who went and moved over to Italy, and there was sort of, my life had stopped. Every now and then in life, you get those moments where you feel like nothing's happening here. And I think in those moments, you've got to make stuff happen. So I literally had no idea why. I just went over to Italy to stay with Vincent, ran out of money, and then thought I better get serious about this. I now need to, find a way of earning some money. So yes, I convinced 4 Italian companies that I was the girl. I was 19. I was the girl to bring their products back to the UK. And bless them, they took their chance on me. So that was good on them.
I mean, have you always been quite confident? Did you find sort of from a young age that you just had that natural ability to communicate with people well, or was it something that you kind of had to teach yourself a bit?
I've always been confident, and I don't know whether that's personality, or it's probably a bit of personality and probably a bit of, nurture is nature and nurture. But I think that was also helped by seeing a mother was in very difficult circumstances when we were small, but she just got on with it. So there kind of, for me, isn't the fear of losing things, or, I just think you've just got to do stuff. You only live once, you've just got to do it. So I've always been very confident. I haven't always been a great communicator. I think as a child you make mistakes, and as a young person you make mistakes, and I bordered on the arrogant, but I learn, and when I get something, I like to have empathy with people. And when I do something that is wrong and I disconnect with people, it really sinks in for me. And I think I mustn't do that again. That didn't work. That lost me friends. I don't like that.
Now, obviously in 2006, I believe it was, Dragon's Den came calling. Was that something, I mean, obviously it'd been on for a few years before you joined the show, but were you aware of kind of what the show was, and what was the thought process going into this show?
Well, I joined series 3, so it'd been on for 2 years, well, actually 2 series, not 2 years before me. And I'd seen it, and I thought it was a great concept and a great show, and I was not at all interested in being on it. So when they rang up and said, would you like to? I'm like, no, thank you. I've got a very nice life and I really don't need to step into the spotlight, and I really don't need media crawling all over me in my life, because I'm just, it's not my thing. Luckily, they persisted and eventually convinced me. And I'm so glad they did, because to me, it's home. It's what I do. It's what I do on television.
And I mean, the whole thing of, like you say, being on television, becoming kind of public property, I suppose, that must be a bit of a weird thing to get your head around. People wanting to speak to you and wanting to have your time, not in a business sense, but in because you're on telly.
Yes, but I think Dragon's Den it does mean that those connections are usually about business. So I quite like that, because it's actually the thing that I love anyway. So listen, people coming up to me with business ideas, I don't care how crazy they are or how good they are. People are thinking things, and it's for me, I rather enjoy that. It's creative and it's energetic, and I love entrepreneurs. I love business. So it's the kind of thing that I can enjoy, because it's talking about a topic that I like. It's not people rushing up to me, oh, Deborah, can I have your autograph, for no reason whatsoever. It's people who generally, oh, Deborah, can I talk to you about a business idea? So no, I like that. That's fine.
And I imagine over the years, you get a lot of people that come up to you with business ideas. Don't worry, I'm not going to pitch you anything. But you must get so many people who come up to you with ideas. I mean, obviously, I imagine some of them are quite good, but there must be a lot of stuff that you think, no, maybe not really. So you have to get quite good, I imagine, at kind of letting people down gently.
Yes, but I also, when I first started Dragon's Den, I think people thought I was quite hard, and I'm not hard. I'm tough, absolutely no doubt about it, because I think there is as big a value in stopping people from making big mistakes as there is actually getting on board and helping their businesses, because not every business is meant to be, every idea is a good idea, so I am, although I'm good at letting people down gently, I do like to be very clear if I don't think it's going to work, because I'd rather people spend their time on something that is going to work than spend their time and their money on something that isn't going to work. And in my early days, a guy came into the den with the worst idea in the world, and he'd mortgaged his house to finance it, and that was a real lesson to me. I just thought, I can't let people do that. We need to have a word with him. So however tough people think I am, I always do it for the right reason.
And there must often be times when someone comes in with a rubbish idea, but you really see something in the individual. So it must be tough to kind of separate the business from the actual person coming to pitch to you.
It is, and so it's interesting. I will invest in a good person with a mediocre product, and I will invest in obviously in a good product with a good person. What I won't do, if I don't trust the person, I won't invest in them. And if I don't understand what they're doing in the den, I think, I'm sorry, I don't get it. I have to trust is a really big thing for me.
And I mean, over the years, you've had so many different things come through the door. I mean, for you, has there been a favourite thing or an investment that you've made that has gone on to be maybe a favourite, or one that you've just really enjoyed working on?
You can't ask me what my favourite investment is. I'm definitely not answering that. Absolutely not. I love them all equally, like children.
But I mean, obviously, with investments, and obviously it takes up a lot of your time. So, I mean, when you see an idea and you have to, think about it. What's going through your mind to make you kind of realize, oh, this is maybe, I can see where I could do this, or, what I could do with this. I mean, there must be a lot going on in your mind when an idea comes through the door.
There is, but actually you've just really pinpointed it. For me, the most important thing, I don't have to make investments to have the life that I've got at the moment. I could very easily just stop working. I do it because I love it, and part of me loving it is I like to be able to make a difference. I love entrepreneurs. I love the fact they start with nothing and they build something, or they've come up with this idea and they turn it into something. So what I have to do is get it. So understand why this business should even exist, but equally as important, what can I do to help this business? Because if I can't, I don't just want to put my money in and walk away. I want to put my money and help that business. So I've got to work out. And sometimes you'll see me sitting there in that chair, and I'm kind of thinking, and it's more about, so what can I do to help this business? You know, who do I know, and how can I get this into there, and would it fit in there? So, I mean, you really said it at the beginning, and that's exactly what was going on in my head.
I mean, you do see quite a few people that walk through the door and then they completely freeze up. You must kind of, is there a sort of a putting them, a sort of a sense of trying to put people at ease? Or do you have to kind of just let them get on with it if they completely freeze up and don't know what, they sort of lose control? Do you just sort of have to kind of let it happen?
Well, it's kind of a bit of a combination. So I always smile when people first come into the den, because I want to hear their pitches. I want them to be able to tell me why their business is a good business. And we also often encourage them. So if they're standing there really, really nervous, we'll say, breathe, it's okay, start again. But they do have to get their act together, because business is tough. And we're learning as much about how the person will react in a difficult situation. So it is important that they can get themselves together, because it shows us a resilience. So, but they're certainly given probably a bit more time than you see. I mean, it'd be boring if you sat and watched 5 minutes of us going breathe. So you only see a tiny bit of that. But I think we cut people a little bit more slack than you probably see, but they've got to get it sorted.
And I mean, for you, what's maybe the greatest bit of advice that either you've been given that you've maybe passed on to people, in your time in business? I mean, would you say there's something that you were maybe sort of taught, or something that you have come across over the years that you've just gone, that's perfect advice?
Yeah, it is. So I when I was very young, I was invited for a dinner. There were about 12 of us with Rocco Fortin. And I said to him, so what would be your one, it's kind of a bit nervous. The only question I've got, what would be your one piece of advice? And he actually gave me, I think, some really good advice. He said, know what is important in your business, because the trouble is that people often they do what they do really, really well. And then they spend time trying to find other stuff to do. And then before you know it, they've forgotten why their customers love them. They've spun off and they're doing something else, and the customers are there saying, oh, that's not what you were. What are you doing? So always know what matters to your customer, what's important in your business, and keep checking back at that, and it might change and it might morph, but keep checking back at it. And that was a really good piece of advice.
Now, one of the other, obviously, pluses of being in the public eye is that the things that you get invited to do. I mean, obviously, one of the big things that you got to do was Strictly Come Dancing. For you, what was the one thing you would say you would take away from your time on that show?
Oh, I had the best time on Strictly Come Dancing. I've never danced in my life. I'm not a makeup and glitter, and I'm not that person. And for a minute, I nearly said no. When they asked me, I nearly turned it down again, because I kept thinking, why? Why would I do that? And my older sister Gail said, do you want to do it? And I said, of course I want to do it. It's Strictly Come Dancing. But why would I do it? She said, well, because you want to do it. And I was in equal measures. I had the best time and the most terrifying time. And those two things kind of make it even more brilliant, because fear gets your adrenaline going. And that absolute standing on the edge of the dance floor, hearing your Robin Windsor and Deborah Meaden and off you go, was terrifying and fantastic. So I think all of my senses, everything was charged, and being surrounded by genuinely the loveliest people wanting you to do your absolute best at every turn. That's quite rare.
I mean, I've spoken to a few people over the sort of the years who have taken part in Strictly, and the one thing that keeps coming back is the fact that it is one of those shows where everyone wants to see you do well, from the people in makeup, the people in costume, the people on the cameras. There's no kind of sort of bringing people down or kind of making people feel like they're not good enough. It is, everyone is I mean, apart from obviously Craig Revel Hall and some of the judges, the rest of it is all really nice, really positive, and it's just like one big family.
Well, it's true, and there's no side to it, and actually, in the world of TV, you know, there can be smoke and mirrors. And I have been onto things where I thought, that's not quite what I thought it was. But Strictly is everything I thought it was. It is as lovely as I had hoped it would be.
And did it bring the performance side out of you? Because I imagine that, you know, coming from a world of business, you don't really have to kind of perform, as it were, like, you know, an actor or a musician. So was that something that you learned, that you were able to kind of, you know, kind of have a bit of a show side to you?
Well, I'm not sure I ever learned it. I remember Robin Windsor going to me, right, so sit on the side and look coy. And I'm like, what does coy look? No, I'm not an actress. I'm not a performer. But I have always been, I think it's partly down to my bingo calling days and the fact I was in the holiday park industry. So I was always, I'm used to being face to face with people. So I was, that side of it, I was confident in, but I don't understand performance. All I could do was enjoy myself, dance as well as I could dance, have as much fun as I can. And Sophie Ellis-Bextor said on the first night, she, in her interview upstairs, she said, and I hung on to that, she said, they were saying, how did you feel? And she said, do you know, all I want to do, I want to come here and I want to have fun. And I thought, that's it. I'm going to have the best time. As long as I'm on here, I'm going to have the best time.
That's the perfect bit of advice, really. You've just got to enjoy it because, you know, it lasts, you know, it's a blink and it's done. So, you know, if you're spending the whole time fretting or, you know, worrying about this, that and the other, you're going to miss it and then it's over.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, I mean, obviously going forward, I imagine, is there a dream, something you would love to achieve that you haven't had the chance to do yet? Is there a goal for you still?
Oh, that's way too much. Yeah. I love travel, so I am definitely missing travel at the moment. Most years, Paul and I will go over to Africa to visit some of the projects that we support through Tusk over there. So I'm definitely missing that. But I tend to be an opportunist. You know, dragons came along. I didn't look for dragons. Dragons came along. Strictly came along. I didn't look for Strictly. I didn't ask to go on Strictly. Strictly came along. So I'm just a great believer. You keep your head up, you keep your eyes out, you keep your mind open, and something comes along and you feel like, yep, that's it. That's what I want to do. So yeah, I just keep my head up. I would like to do something. I'm very concerned about climate change and I'm very concerned about the environment, and I don't know what it is, but I feel I can engage more on that front. I feel like, you know, I need to work out what I can do so that when I move on, then I can have felt like I've actually made a difference here.
And it must be nice as well to know that you've got that platform, that you can use that to make a change.
Oh, I feel immense, you know, listen, I'm no different to the person that before I went on Dragon's Den. I'm still that same person, but I didn't have, you know, and I had the same thoughts and I had the same things to say. I had the same worries. I had the same passions in life, but I didn't have the platform. And when I think now how lucky I am to be able to, you know, talk to so many people about the things that I care about, I feel very, very lucky for that.
Now, I just want to say it's been a pleasure talking, but before we go, is there any messages you would like to give to the people who are listening in hospital, you know, to the people all around the world that are, or, you know, around the UK that are currently stuck in hospital at the moment?
Well, first of all, I would like to say a massive thank you. I always say this, but I mean it, a massive thank you to all of the staff working in those hospitals, because my experience of you is you have been, and you are, awesome. So I'd like to thank you, and to all of those people in hospital for whatever reason, just remember that you're loved and you are cared for, and by those very same people that I've just thanked. So best wishes to you all. Get well soon, get yourselves out of those hospitals, and get back into your life.
Thank you so much, Deborah. It's been an absolute pleasure. Of course, keep safe, and yeah, thank you again for giving up your time.
And you keep safe too, Matthew. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.